policy, and I have to abide by that. I'm sorry. But that's just the way I feel. Just like the principles I made my decision on voting no, these are my principles for where I stand. So I cannot bring that up for another vote.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments. I appreciate it, but I don't think you're listening to the community. 400 people signing a petition is a lot of people to the children. So thank you.
I'm also a real estate agent in the community, and it's kind of hard to defend home values either way, how they can be affected. But I definitely see some fire resistance going to happen because of this. You know, when people are looking at a school 2 seconds down the street from them versus something they can't see halfway across town, they're going to be wondering why their child is not just walking 2 minutes down the street to go to school. And just out of curiosity, how many of the board members have a child that's affected by this?
No.
There's 90% of your reason right there.
Yeah.
My name is Spackenkill. Road. We've heard a lot from me over the past few months, but I just have one more thing to say about the hidden costs of regular schools. Just tonight, 30 days after the initial vote, we've already seen an increase of $85,000 that has come about as a result of poor planning. It was not considered originally, and that cancels out one teacher position right there. I've also seen a $24,000 request for bus cameras, which I can only assume is to mitigate parents' concerns about the transportation plan. Add on to that the approximately $60,000 costs that were originally stated early in the process. That's almost another $85,000. Another teacher position was canceled out. Right there, we come to 3 positions that we're really gaining. Not that I'm advocating cutting teacher positions, but we can accomplish cutting those 3 positions without changing the grade level schools. So I can only wonder, as we continue through this process and we plan or don't plan, whichever the case may be, how are the costs going to continue to grow, and what is going to be the real cost of grade level schools?
Interesting that you went to the first graders of this year and the fourth graders of this year and cared what they wanted to do next year, and yet you didn't ask the community what they wanted to do. I'm speechless.
Has anyone ever known me to be speechless? Not me.
This makes no sense. And the more I think about it, the more it doesn't make any sense. Open it up for community vote. I heard one board member thought that, 7 to 10 people are in favor of it. So great. So open up the community vote. Everybody will vote for it, and you'll all be happy. And the community will support it that way, right? That's what you think. So that's what I recommend. Thank you.
I just actually had a few questions about the practice and the plan. First of all, I just want to say I think it's completely unfair that the current first graders and fourth graders are given a choice, but not the current Hagen kindergartners. They're going to be the only population that are going to be undergoing an additional 2 transitions than if you kept neighborhood schools. I find that completely unfair. You're giving these others a choice, so they're only going to have 1 more transition, but only the Hagen kindergartners are going to be undergoing an additional 2. And that includes the first one going into first grade, and there is achievement loss associated with the transition, and they're entering arguably the hardest grade when they're supposed to be learning how to read. I think that is putting that group at a huge, huge disadvantage.
Yes.
I just want to bring up is, are there any plans in terms of even the current Hagen third graders? Now, this probably is not something that you have thought of, but it's something I've thought of because my second grader will be a third grader at Hagen next year. That is, even though he's not changing buildings, that is going to be a completely different building for them. They're going to have new students. They're going to have a new principal. They're going to be in a new wing of the building. They're not going to have any of their previous year's teachers there, so they're not going to know most of the staff. Not to mention the fact that who knows what's going to happen with the specialist teachers. They could have all new specialist teachers. And, I mean, is this being thought about at all? This is going, even though they're not moving schools, this is going to be a transitional experience. Not to mention the fact that the more I look into it, the worse of a plan I actually think it is instead of better, unfortunately. I mean, the latest research that I've been finding has been saying that actually between 2nd and 3rd grade is actually one of the worst years that a student should be transitioning, because there's a huge shift for students both academically and developmentally. So now, you know, you're adding, in addition to this, another building change, which I think is very, very bad. So this actually brings a question. I was looking back at the original plan from a couple of years ago, and it was a K through 3 and then a 4 and 5 configuration. And I was wondering what happened with that plan.
Essentially, we thought that the K-1-2 was the primary grades. They were more alike, and 3, 4, 5 were intermediate grades, more alike. And the buildings had the room to support all 3 grades because of the enrollment decline.
Okay, just wondering why the change. It was K through 3 originally what I saw, and then it was 4, 5. The other thing is at Hagen, is the plan that all of the 3rd through 5th graders going to be in the 3 through 5 wing, leaving the entire K through 2 wing empty?
I would think the principal would have to make a scheduling decision in that. I would see personally spreading them out a little more, but I think that's something the principal would have to look at.
You know, and this part of the problem, I think, is that we're not seeing a plan, you know? I mean, what is the actual plan? And maybe that would make us feel a little more confident about going forward with it. I think this is a real, real problem. How are we dealing with the transitional issues? Do we have any plans in place, or are we just throwing it on the PTA to come up with the plans? Because again, it wouldn't this is what we're going to do to deal with it. We have heard nothing except like a fly by the seat of your pants. Okay, we'll deal with it when it comes up. So how are we supposed to feel confident? We have kids. I have 3 kids in 3 different buildings. They all start at 9 o'clock. You know, you've got no plan as to. I mean, and my next question has to do with the. Well, actually, before I get to that, are there any plans to bring the 6th graders back to Hagen?
No.
Why not?
Because middle school concept is 6, 7, 8, and that was a battle fought years ago, and it's working well.
It is? Well, I mean, again, I have been looking into this a lot. I've been doing a lot of research, and I have found, not that you care, so I'm not even going to bother sending it to you, a plethora of research that says 6th graders do remarkably better in an elementary setting than in a middle school setting. So, I mean, if you've got the room, if you're going to do it, I think that should be a consideration. I think you should be looking more at the research. And this is recent research. In addition to 8th graders doing better, you know, in the elementary setting as well. I mean, there's a lot of research out there about that. Another question I have is, what if this whole plan as we go through ends up costing a lot more, which it already seems like it is, than we expected? You know, at what point are we going to say, this is ridiculous, this is too much money, for what? You know, I mean, has it been looked into how much it would cost to get bus money? Like, you know, with the length of these bus rides, some of them, I mean, we don't know exactly yet, but I would not be surprised if there's a need for bus monitors on these buses. And so has that been looked into as a possible cost? No. What about when the students in the morning, when they get to Hagen, the mix of the Hagen-Nassau kids, you're going to have younger kids staying on the bus. Who's going to be there to make sure that they get off at the right spot, like at the right place?
Just well over 3 minutes, so you might finish. If you have more questions, you can ask directly with the...
There are teachers, TAs, and the administration outside.
So is there going to be someone at each bus, make sure the Hagen kids get off, and then the Nassau
Especially at the
students
beginning.
stay on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Research states that any kind of change, especially controversial change, is easier accepted if it's gradual. So I have to ask the 5 board members if you really feel like this is a well thought out plan that we are gradually going to accept. Because if we first, think about it in September and October, and now all of a sudden in January, it's a done decision, and I love the idea of democracy, but you have to accept that the democracy didn't get to vote, the people didn't get to vote. There's a way that we can go back and really research this and plan it out a little better than all these holes. I mean, I have a kindergartner that gets on the bus right now to go to Hagen with his brother and his sister, and I'm supposed to explain to him next year he's going to go to a different school without his brothers and sisters, on a bus. It just really, there's so many holes in the plan. You have to feel like this is not a good idea to start tonight or do this coming September.
We live at 5 Holland Court, and I know that Dr. Willoughby and Mr. Keefe, you said you're not going to be open it for a vote, but after hearing what has been said tonight, for the other 3 that voted no last time, will you open it for a vote?
Come on, do it. Do it. Make some comments at the end. I'm not going to answer you directly right now.
I think it's kind of important because, there's a lot of research that I think was just completely ignored. And I think a lot of people brought up some very, very credible, statements tonight that maybe you didn't think about before. I mean, do you think do you honestly think that it could be a possibility that you could open it back up and revote?
Again, there have been some things like would a district resident move out because of this that I truly didn't think of before, but honestly, I don't think there's anything that I hadn't pretty much heard before. A lot of the themes are very much the same, so I would not be inclined to do so. But you can, each will have their own.
Okay, so that's one of you. We would need 2 to reopen the vote.
I keep hearing that all the research that was presented to the board was ignored and was not looked into. I have to say for myself, I read every single piece of research and that was sent to us. I also did my own research and I looked at other research, not only, everything that the community presented and that I could find on my own, and I based my decision on that research. So there is no way, there's no room for, I read everything to make my decision, so it's done for me.
Okay, so then let's get to the real crux of why we're here. Because you were all fiscally irresponsible in the past. And that's the reason why you're bringing this back up again, saying that grade level schools, are the only that's the only way that we can meet our budget this year. But yet, I have said time and time again, why hire teachers at a higher step in step 1 when they come in? But yet, you hired another math teacher just recently at step 9. It's these little things that continue to add up. Yeah, and she's nodding. You guys continue to do this. You vote on it, you accept it. No, you don't even know. It's very upsetting to me to think that you will do these kinds of situations and every little bit keeps adding up. As far as your contract being up, you renegotiate in July, I have your newest contract signed here, October 3rd.
That was a revision made by the board in October. The actual contract was renegotiated in July.
Okay, can you, as the board, tell me why her contract was renegotiated a year early?
What do you mean? It gets talked about every year. Each
Okay.
year we have to choose. Yeah. There's time requirements where she has to submit anything that she wants changed in May, and then the board discusses it, and then it's all a part of the contract. Yeah.
All part of the contract. So going into teachers' contracts this coming year, we are now, like you said, your base pay is $185,000 a year. Plus you have benefits on top of that. Plus you add in your $400 a month car allowance that you all find acceptable. Plus merit increases. I don't know any other public employee that gets merit increases. Plus adding into your 403B, your annuity, and everything else. If, as a board, you had said, you know what, we're going to stop this spending. We're going to look at the children first, rather than put a cushy contract together. grade level school saying it's going to cut $300,000, and I guarantee, and I've said it time and time again, because I have a child in kindergarten, I have a child in first grade, which, by the way, thank you for offering to go to fourth grade, but you won't come to first grade. You didn't come and not ask us. You sent a paper home. That's what you did. Right before the break. And, I mean, it's reprehensible to me. Not only did you do that, again, right before the break, well done to basically saying to the people that are with our children every single day that 2 weeks before Christmas, you're not going to have a job next year. That is terrible. Who does something like that? I mean, how can you possibly see that? Now, you've not only made a horrific morale throughout the community. Those poor teachers in those schools, I cannot even imagine what they are feeling right now. I still have no idea how I'm going to explain to my daughter who is in kindergarten that she's not going to be with her big brother next year. We're 16 months apart, but yet they'll be apart from 2 years apart. But now you're saying I have that choice as a parent. Gee, now you can go with your friends or you can go with your sister. Do you have children?
No.
So you have no idea what this feels like.
I think that's an exaggeration.
No, you really don't. I'm very disappointed in the board.
Good evening, George Everyone. The packet that was available on the table at the beginning of the meeting, the budget information packet, I noticed that some of the parents didn't come in time to receive this, so I hope this will be on the website tomorrow. In particular, the last page needs to be clarified that these really are the overall reductions that are under consideration. And for people who are interested, I did some math, they total 2.6 million. So if we're challenged by 1.3 total, I guess this is, offers 2 times the required projected budget cuts. I'm a little confused. Earlier in the meeting, you talked about the projection of $370,000 in cuts for grade level schools, and then when Doris Conti was here, it went to 0. Based on the 5 sections for most grades and 4 sections for fifth graders, for 2012 and 13, what would the projected savings be?
About $375.
Okay, so so it would count toward this.
Yes.
And then my last question is, in terms of the start time, what is the proposed start time for Hagen?
9 o'clock.
And what time will parents be allowed to drop off kids?
About 22.
Okay, well, that is cutting it extremely close. So since my wife and I both work, she grew up going to neighborhood school. I grew up in a grade level school. I think it can work, but frankly, I'm under strict orders in the household. We agree that after if a start time after 8:30 is not is required, then we're against it. So where's the petition?
Just a comment on this. These are optional budget cuts. Some will probably be adopted this year. Others will be looking for future years. You'll see, as I said, next month, a 3-year projection on some of these things, and you will probably see those span out across the years, such as like the day kindergarten, which is on there, which will be on the 3-year, but not necessarily this year.
Anna Shaw, 20 Myron Drive. I spoke earlier. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that I find a little bit disturbing. First of all, I have an issue with the decision being issued in December 12, 2011, and I believe Board Member Chimento, you stated that January was the drop-dead date for this, correct? Well, I want to point out that Board Member Cruzam at the PTA meeting on November 21st, 2011, when she was asked by parents and some of the concerned community members about the drop-dead date for grade level schools, it was stated, do we have a date for the vote regarding grade level schools? Where Board Member Cruzam stated no date at this time. The board is trying to do the right thing. And parents said, Dr. Powell wants a decision by January, and Board Member Cruzam said, again, the board is not going to be rushed into this process. That's one comment I want to make sure was made available to the community.
Even the microphone, please.
No. Second thing I wanted to mention was there are a couple of issues that I find very concerning and statements made by various board members when they were issuing their decision. Board member Willoughby, you commented, I haven't gotten a good enough case for this. It feels rushed. We can get more information, but to do it this year, not enough data for me. Tom Keith, board member Keith, as of this morning, I hadn't made my decision. Sibley issue is troublesome, don't like the numerous transitions, I'm guessing, but don't know. Transportation costs is probably the reason Wappinger's going back to look into neighborhood school. Did you check as to what the reason was, or were you just guessing?
That's why I made my decision, no.
Good, I'm glad. But my point is also there is a recourse available, and it's
And
a
never
Roberts.
gives you that response, no.
Right, and I'm pointing out again, board member McCall, board member McCall, that was you. Not a diehard for either scenario was what you stated. So I'm asking you, when you hear all these comments by the community members who are standing behind me, and you're telling me you are kind of on the edge, and you're going to subject her kids to all sorts of transitions, and his family to have to juggle with employment and scheduling concerns, and you're going to put my kid on a bus to go around town Poughkeepsie over Route 9, which is the most dangerous highway. I'm not feeling that from you in a vote of yes. That's not okay with me. And I'm not going to support grade level schools, and I'm not going to support GLS, and I'm going to tell you something. In order for GLS to work, you need the community who is affected the most by the change to support the measure, and I don't think that you get that. Board member Curzon, I'm concerned here. You stated a couple of minutes ago that you had read all the research. In your decision, you said you found it inconclusive. A couple of minutes ago, you said you read all the research and you considered it, and yet this board just told us a couple of minutes ago you have made absolutely no efforts to discuss how to mitigate transitions. You have made no effort whatsoever to discuss how to handle the various grade changes between 1 and 4. This is all stuff that you're handling at this, someone else mentioned, fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. This is not a well thought out decision-making process. This is not sound educational policy. This is an arbitrary and a capricious decision, and you have made that clear. I'm urging you to rethink this issue and to do the right thing and to bring it back up. If you don't want to do that tonight, that's fine. But when you go back to your own little secret sessions or whatever, I'm urging you to do the right thing and to bring it back up because you do not have a community behind you. In less than 1 month, we have 400 people who do not agree with the grade level measure and who wish to oppose and challenge the decision. And that was in less than a month because we had a week off the holiday. And am I cut off now?
15, no, I'm
Okay.
going.
So, and then Ralph Schmitzer, you said yourself, transitions can be an issue. Redwood schools can move, okay. Again, transitions are a significant deficit of the grade level school model. And my problem is that no one has made any effort whatsoever to develop a plan to mitigate that. If you don't do that, the educational deficits are going to carry on from year to year. 6-month deficits, best case scenario, 1 year for students who are at risk or who are students who are special needs. That's not okay for me. As a parent, as a member of this community, that's going to affect the children when they reach the high school level. That's going to affect your graduation rates. That's going to affect who is going to be a dropout. That's going to affect who is, kids who are on the cusp of possibly succeeding and not succeeding. Have you thought of this? No. Thank you.
Good evening, Dave Webster from Berlin Drive. I moved into the district in '91, and my first child entered the school in '93, and I had a child in the district every year since. I don't usually go to board meetings. They've already been pretty routine until now. Every year the Poughkeepsie Journal reports that Spackenkill spends the most money per student out of all the local districts, like 10,000 per student or something like that. They're always the top of the list. So But then we go on to the budget, and the parents always approve the budget, even though we realize we're spending the most. So you do have good community support there. So my question is, why didn't we ask the community to support the budget as is? You know, I know we're capped at 2% if you don't get 60%, but why wasn't Plan A, let's see if we can get 60% vote and not have to go through all this? If you look around, I think you might just get it.
I wish you were right. We did actually look at that, and part of the thing is this is the first year of the tax cap, and I don't think you're going to see anybody try to exceed it and just flaunt it in the legislature space as to, we're not going to listen to you, we're going to do it our way. Probably not a good thing to start.
It was an option.
The second thing is there's only been 1 year that we've ever passed a vote by 60%.
That's because it's all been very boring.
Okay, I guess maybe more exciting, but
not support for.
But they are two of the main reasons that we did it. I personally think you're correct. I think unless there is remediation from the legislature in some way modifying the current tax cap, that in either year 2 or 3 we are probably going to have to ask to exceed it, because nobody is going to want to see what happens with no sports, no extracurriculars or anything like that.
Right, so put it to the
30 pupil class sizes. So yeah, I think you're right. At some point that will happen.
Usually about 56%.
55, 56, yeah. That's usually the average.
So why wouldn't that be Plan A?
Again, our theory is exactly
no, I don't want
we've
theory. We
coached.
should actually test it.
Yeah, the problem, again, as you saw tonight with testing something, if it gets voted down twice, we go to 0, which is another $1.3 million. We don't go back to CPI like the old way.
You don't think these people would pass a 4% of the standard average increase that we?
Yeah, I would hope they would, but I can't guarantee it. I mean, if every budget passed by 60%, I'd be more likely
There's
to
not
try
as
it.
much passion usually. So like I said, it's pretty boring. Just kind of, we're spending the most out of every district, and we continue to spend it. Now, you have the support of the community. You should have asked.
Again, it'd be a tough way to ask if you didn't happen. It didn't happen. That's all I can say. I don't know.
You don't think it would pass? You usually get 56% of people that don't.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not really big on voting either. But here, I think these people may turn out.
I gave you my comment. I don't know what you're.
I'm asking if you might adjust it and go with the Plan A of testing it.
The board can do as they wish, but it's not my idea of something that would work in the first year of the tax cap.
My name is Nicole Wilson, 12 Old Mill Drive. I have 2 children, almost 2 and almost 4, so neither of them are in the school system yet. And like many people said here, I didn't even know about what was going on. Nobody told me. There was no notice sent home. Luckily, I have cousins finally in the district and found out late in the meeting. And even finding out late in the meeting, many of us were still able to go around and get 400 petitions of people to work for us. So imagine if you reached out to the community you're supposed to be representing and gave people a fair shot to have a voice in this. This is the first meeting I've ever been to. I've never been to one, and now I know why. it doesn't seem like you guys care about anything that anyone says up here. I sat here and I've heard people get angry. I've heard people accuse you guys. I've heard people be rational. I've heard people try to be, speak to you emotionally about how this affects their family. And nobody up here has, it's okay to admit you are wrong. It's okay to admit you might be wrong. And I'm not saying you are wrong, but I'm saying it's okay to say, you know what, all of these people got up here and spoke. I think all of them had valid reasons. It's okay to, maybe you won't tell us right now that you'll reassess this and revote, but to walk away and agree that you'll at least discuss it amongst yourselves. We have children that get affected by this. I'm just now coming into the game, but I'm just asking you to care a little bit about what all of us are here doing. I have a million things I need to be doing right now, and I just wanted to say my piece and say that my kids are going to get affected. Instead of being together for 4 years, my kids are going to be together for 2 years. I am a working mother. It's hard enough for me to juggle one kid going to nursery school right now, let alone 2 kids going to 2 separate schools. So you guys talk about a democracy. I didn't vote anybody in here. I'm not saying I wouldn't have or I would have. All I'm saying is just to care a little bit about what the people are saying who you're supposed to be representing.
I just want to say to you all, I'm so proud of the parents here tonight. They spoke well, made valid points. I have a child for next year who will be, Marie Mazzarelli, 32 Schoolhouse Lane. I will have a child in kindergarten, in 3rd grade, and 5th grade. And I don't recall papers going home. I don't. Pat Cordner, I think she already left. But she impressed me so much. Her child won't be impacted on this matter. And she felt the need to voice her opinion. So I just want to, again, just say how proud I am of you all for all your points, and hopefully we have made an impact on your decision.
I think what you guys need to understand is that we have a great school district here. Whenever I tell anybody where I live, they say, wow, Spackenkill schools are the best. And they are the best. I think we're all just scared that we're not going to be as good as we are, and we got to do that. My daughter, when she went to kindergarten, she had Miss Drummond as a teacher. I don't want to embarrass Miss Drummond, but I was so impressed with kindergarten. And 1st grade, I'm impressed with that now too. So we're all just scared that the quality of our education is going to go down. So why don't we just go back and put this to a vote on whether we want to do this, and then at least you can go move forward with what the community wants to do, and then we're all on board and we can make it work. That's all we're asking. We're all scared.
Richard Trey from Report Timberland Drive. Just out of curiosity, I tried to find some information on the board website. I wasn't able to. We have an election coming up this May. How many board seats are up for re-election? Up for re-election? Is anyone running for re-election?
There's 1 seat up.
There's 1 seat. And who seat is that?
Don't know.
That'd be mine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Larissa Jenkins Ingalls, and I live. People hear me? Yes. My name is Larissa Jenkins Ingalls, and I own a house on 13 Old Burnt Road. We also own a house on 61 Roundhill Road. I did not receive any information on this vote, and I only have a 1.5-year-old, and I'm very nervous, so I'm sorry. But I would like to say that I only learned about this because my sisters have children in the school district, and I wouldn't have known about it. So that makes me very angry that no information was sent out to the community. And I did petition this weekend for 8 hours for people right here. And I don't even have kids in school yet because I know when people are angry. And I would like to say that I hit 49 homes. Only 37 people opened their doors. And I know some people were home and they probably thought I was selling something. I don't know. I got 47 signatures that oppose it. Half the people I went to did not even know about it. And these are people with small children that are not in grade school level yet, or older people who did not know about it. And some older people did sign. Some older people didn't sign because of the tax thing. But I would like to say that that was very unfair. I think you should open it to a community vote. And I bought my house in Spackenkill, knowing that my child would be going to a neighborhood school in walking distance. And I've been in this district 20 years. And that's all I have to say.
Dave Cohen, 19 South Rock Drive. Actually, my kids are not affected by this decision, but and as I mentioned before, my main concern is that we're not really losing teachers unnecessarily because of this decision. And I don't understand all your procedures and guidelines and protocol and all that other stuff, but it sounds like the community votes for a budget, yay or nay. Why couldn't this be brought up as a referendum for the whole community to vote on? What procedure is presented?
I'm not sure. It's something, I guess you could.
So why not? It sounds like the passion here is that we do that.
Hi, good evening. I'm nervous too. I've been in the last couple of meetings, haven't been brave enough to stand up, but then regretted not saying something because I have 2 little kids at home, and I want to do what's best for them, and I think that's what everyone's here for. I feel discouraged, and I feel upset, and I feel like people have put a lot of energy into this, and I don't feel like we're being heard. And I think what a lot of people are saying is, let the community make their points in a way that will affect our kids by letting us vote. You mentioned the democracy, but as many people have said, a lot of people, all of the people that are affected by this are you're not allowing our voices to be heard. I just want to also make a point that you have 400 people signing a petition saying that they're not in agreement, they're not comfortable with this decision, they feel like it's been rushed. There's not enough evidence saying that this is going to work. Nobody knocked on my door. My kids are not in school yet, so that's 401 that would be signing that. I can't help but wonder how many people, like this woman said, she knocked on someone's door, they didn't open it. So it could be double that. I mean, we don't know. There's a lot of people that voices were not heard. I just ask that perhaps you can, I don't know if you can re-vote on this. I don't know if you're willing to think about doing that. Let the community vote on it. Rethink this decision. Give it more time. There's a lot of numbers that we don't know about. You're basing your decision that's affecting hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds and hundreds of kids, on a lot of unknowns. If this could be put on hold, if you could say, like some people suggested, perhaps don't do it in September, do it the following year, so all of these things can be worked out. Just give it a chance. Just think about it when you're home. Think about it, what it would have been like when your young kids were in school. Since none of you are affected by this personally, think about it from our standpoint. We just ask that you think about it, from the community standpoint. Thank you.
Spoke already, but I have a question that nobody brought up about the space in NASA that's rented for both these programs. What age group does that service? I understand they're self-contained classes. What are the age of the children in that rented space in NASA? And if they're not K through 2, are they staying in NASA?
They are K through 2, and they will stay at NASA, but there are a couple of classrooms rented. And from what I understand, BOCES has actually requested a room in each of the buildings next year instead of both at Nassau.
Why?
Why?
Yes, because of the grade levels. They want to keep it with the same age.
There's an older class also.
So it's not just K through 2. So the K through 2 children would be the K through 2 children, and the older children would be with the older children. Yes. Which, again, was not information presented to us. That was never disclosed to us. That was something that came to the community. Maybe you want to go back to the October minutes, because that was one of my first points that I brought up to you, is did you take into consideration the number of people that will leave this district and the number of people that would be discouraged to moving into this district, knowing that this may be the potential because you cannot afford to live in Spackenkill, pay the price for the house and the taxes if your income is decreased because of your obligation to your children's needs and or the increase in your child care costs due to situations like this. So that is definitely in your minutes, because that was one big factor that I brought up was you're jeopardizing people's employment or their ability to, you're lowering their income due to their before care and after care costs. People could potentially move out or not be encouraged to move in. And if I have to play Switzerland, I'm not for this. I'm 100% not for it. But in the best interest of the board's obstacles and challenges and our community, and if revoting is not an option, because it doesn't seem that revoting is an option, but giving this a year to do this the right way, because we pride ourselves in this community at giving our children the best that we can, from an educational standpoint, from a parental standpoint. And we have the opportunity right now to say, okay, the board's decided we're going to go through with this, but we are going to do this the right way, and potentially down the road be a model for other schools with this obstacle. If this has to happen, and you refuse to revote it, I'm basically begging you to revisit giving it another year and make this transition one that we can all be proud of.
I have a question for the board and the administration. Where are the minutes of the meetings that can be examined? I'm hearing a lot of people saying they had no idea this was going on. I've searched for them, cannot find them. There's no way that I can see that a community member would be able to examine board docs and know what's happening. There is no record. There is no accountability. And
the minutes are on board docs.
No.
Where?
The agendas are on board docs. Where are the minutes?
Once the minutes are approved from the meeting, now tomorrow morning I will put them on for the public to see once they're approved.
Where? You're telling me that I can
They're on
go
board
and
docs
see
on
December
the-
12th meeting? Because
No.
I couldn't find them anywhere. They're not there.
December 12th would be approved tonight, so they would go on tomorrow.
November, October,
They should be
September.
there.
They're there.
2010, they're not there.
They're not there.
Well, we'll take a look and
They may not be publicly available, they might be for your eyes only, but they are not available to the public.
one in the public side too. Okay, well,
We'll
we'll take a look at that.
And
They
I would
should be
like
there.
us to go into the record tonight that those minutes have not been viewable by the public for who knows how long.
Just a note on the real estate thing, I can tell you right now that my husband and I would, without a doubt, put a sign in front of our house to leave this district with 3-level schools. But what you don't understand is that because the economy is in such a downturn and the real estate market is so bad, that many people don't have that option because their home values have dropped so much over the last few years that they're underwater in their mortgages. So we're stuck here. We have little children that are going to be subjected to all these transitions, and we don't have a choice. We can't leave. We can't afford to send them to private school. It's very unfair. And tonight you approved to give the first graders and the fourth graders an option. What about the current kindergartners in Hagen? You are completely ignoring. Some of them are 5 years old, some of them are 6 years old now. But you cannot ignore that those transitions on those small kids are going to be tremendous. I know how this is going to affect my daughter, and it's not going to be good. I also want to bring up the fact that the transportation plan is so flawed, it's unreal. That you have not lived people who live in the Walker Zone in Hagen, whose children are going to be split up into 2 schools that all of a sudden are starting Hagen at 9 o'clock, which I drop off my child at 8:30 now. How am I going to get to work and drop off 2 kids? Because I'm not putting my kid on one of your buses that's going to sit on a bus in Hagen for 20, 30 minutes and then go over to Nassau. I think it's ridiculous. And then I also want to bring up one point, that at the December 12th meeting, recall that you said that one of the things you did to consider your decision was to discuss it with your children, who, by the way, are not affected by this plan. And they said, oh, no big deal. How is that relevant to a parent who has a small child in this district? It's not relevant. It shouldn't have even been brought up.
Can I just say that what I'm talking about was when it was first brought up, when it did affect them. I'm just saying, it's a piece of information. I'm allowed to, take into consideration what you're saying.
They don't pay taxes. Your kids don't pay taxes.
No, I wanted to get their opinion.
Our kids' opinions don't matter.
Yeah, our kids, yeah. What about our children? Why don't you go ask my daughter, my kindergartner, if she wants to go to Nassau next year, or if she wants to stay in Hagen with her big sister?
So a lot of people have said a lot of things. They have expressed clearly that they do not agree with your decision. So I would once again urge you to revisit the decision, include the community. Let's not create another Washington, D.C. here for the future of our kids, please.
I'm Shannon Hinneberg. I live at 37 Valley View Road. I have a kindergartner and a 4-year-old. And is there any way we can vote for the kindergartners if they can stay in Hagen, so they don't have to make another transition next year, another 1 to 2 years? Is that possible? Because we're asking first graders and fourth graders. Is that something anybody's thought about?
I'll say my thing. I don't think that needs to be decided. That part of it doesn't need to be decided tonight.
Is it something you guys can think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Once it's my turn to talk tonight, I will address those issues.
So people are coming up a second time. I just had one more question I wanted to ask. And it was regarding the transportation plan. So whoever can address this. But I just wanted to get it clear that on the way to school, so you're going to have the Hagen and all grades basically riding together from the same area. The buses are going to go to Hagen first, drop off the 3 through 5, and then go to Nassau and drop off.
If they're on the Hagen side.
Right, yes, I'm referring to the Hagen side, people who live in the Hagen area. Okay, so therefore the younger Hagen kids that live in the Hagen area are going to be on the bus the longest because they have to go to Nassau. Okay, so then on the way home, the buses that are leaving the Nassau area, so again these would be the K through 2 kids, the Nassau area kids then are going to get dropped off first, and then they will proceed to the Hagen area. Is that correct?
Or there could be separate runs just for the Hagen area. So the students that belong in Hagen that are at
leaving
Nassau
from Nassau
could leave. There could be one stop on the way, say that's how it's going, then they would go over to the Hagen area.
Okay, so some are going to go right to Hagen area, and some are going to go to Nassau area? Or is there a chance that my child could be waiting on the bus for Nassau kids to get off and then be transported to Hagen area, or no?
There could be when we're doing the bus routes. The bus route is going to be going directly past the house to get to the Hagen area at that bus stop and drop off students. But it's not going to be predominantly driving all over the Nassau area and then going across Route 9 to drop off Hagen students.
Okay, but basically the youngest kids who live in the Hagen area are going to have the longest bus rides to school and the longest bus rides home.
Yes.
Yes.
Good answers, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to comments from the board.
I'll go before people start leaving. All right. Let me just again, these thoughts are in no particular order, and I won't use any vulgar language because we're being televised tonight. Look,
I'm not going to argue with a single person here that this has been a very poorly presented plan. There's no way around it, okay? Now, let's not say anything. So let me finish my comments before we start saying anything and jump in the middle. Let me get through them all. Now, to this day, I lean towards the grade level model as a better way of educating, okay? I think you need to know that that's what I believe based on my, 4, 5, 6 years of being heavily involved in this district in reading educational materials. I mean, I am a staunch student of education. I've become that. It's almost turned into a hobby of mine. So I do not take this lightly, okay? Now, there's some other components. We talked about teachers and their opinion. Did I ask for teachers' opinions that I talked to? Yes. In that case, much of it was positive in the teachers that I talked to. And I hope that teachers get reprimanded for talking to a board member. It is a source of frustration that the teachers, are not up here advocating one way or the other. Because I think they definitely have some valuable input that could offer to this discussion. So I'm going to reiterate, my decision was not capricious. And I read much of the research that was taken, and I'm not discounting it. Now, some other themes have come up, and I really don't have good answers for things like people who did not know about this earlier, especially if you don't have a student in the district. I don't know how you get that word out. I mean, do we put it on the radio? I guess things could have been mailed home, but when do you choose to do some of those things? I mean, I can tell you, we tried to get, and Paul will vouch for this, we have a fundraiser for an education system. We do a lot of things to get the word out, and then people say they don't hear about it. So we can work on that. We need to work on that. Let's see. So I guess the biggest thing that I want to say is I agree that we've got to have the better plan. Now I will tell you, we're never going to have a perfect plan on anything. I mean, you have some of this stuff, you just have to work through it. I don't care what it is, a decision to do anything, to do the high school renovation. I mean, it's never perfect. There's change orders. There's things that are going to come up. And we as a district have to get through it and do the best we can. But we can have a better plan than we have. And so I would like to ask the administration, Dr. Powell, that we get this plan has not been, I mean, this should have been a business plan from day one, in my opinion. I mean, PowerPoint, of 12 slides does not, for a decision like this, it doesn't warrant it. It needs much more information. I can tell you that many people around here who have to make presentations to their superiors put a lot more information in front of the decision maker. Now, and I told you before, though, that's not changing my mind, but I believe that the community deserves a better plan. But now, in the administration's defense, it's kind of hard to come out with a perfect plan until you know you're going to do this, okay? So, no, listen to me. I asked to let me finish, okay? I'm trying to be as open and as honest as I possibly can about how I feel about this.
Persuasive.
Excuse me?
Persuasive.
I'm not trying to be persuasive at all. I'm trying to say that I'm just trying to state facts that I see as facts. And what I'm saying is that I'm asking for a plan. Tonight, I'm asking for the plan. I don't think it's spelled out good enough. I'm not willing to change the vote or bring it up for a vote right now, but we can set it that we have time that we can have this plan, And I'd like to ask the board to pick a date, whether it's the next board meeting or one after that, where we have the comprehensive plan that would show what this would look like to the best of our ability at this point in time. And I'd like to applaud Jennifer Payton. I mean, I really respect the way you're approaching this subject, that if it went through, you're going to make the best of it, but you're against it. And I have no problem with that. So I want to have a plan, and I don't know how we go about. I'll listen to the other board members first, and then I'll say something after that.
In reference to a couple things that were brought up. One, I don't think there's any board member that's currently here that doesn't care about what's going to happen to our children, what's going to happen to the district, and where we're going to be going into the future. I wish I could know how many students were going to be coming in next year, the year after. The numbers that we're being told are just completely far, far off from what we were told. Would this decision be a little easier to make if we had these numbers in a crystal ball? Absolutely. I voted the way I voted. We all care about what we're doing here. Wouldn't be up here until 5 after 11 at night trying to make this all right. The decision has been made. Again, Jennifer, she brought it out so nicely. Whether you're for it or not for it, we're here and we have to make this right for our kids. In reference to Pat Gordner's response that I'm not, or anyone else is not responding to her emails, quite frankly, when I'm threatened on my emails, I am not going to respond to them. Honestly, to the point, I'm not going to respond to it. If you're going to threaten litigation towards me as an individual, I will not respond. So that's just me as a separate. In my business line of business, as soon as that comes up, I got to shut down. So that's how that goes. Again, we're all up here for one reason. It's because we want the district to go to that next level. We're really trying times right now. Extremely trying times. It's not the way it used to be. We can't continue to do the business the way we used to do it. We all have to find ways, whether it's grade level schools or cutting other programs, we have to find these ways to get there. Unfortunately, we're at where we're at. And yes, I would love to say that we're going to get that 60% vote anytime. I don't know where that gentleman went. But I just don't see, I've never seen it here. Even when I was going to school here, I don't recall a 60%. A 60% vote? Yeah, it's 55, 56. But I have not seen a 60, which we need. It's not very often, and it hasn't been for a very long time. I would love to say that every one of you would bring 10 people to the polls and we get this through. But we take that chance and we lose that chance, and then we have one opportunity to get that passed. Otherwise, we got to cut 2.6 million. And imagine the district at that point where we had to cut 2.6 and where we'd be from that point on. These are just my thoughts, not any representation of the rest of the board. But again, we all care about what we're doing here. And again, responding to emails, if you want to talk, that's fine. But I don't like threats. And I will not respond to anything that's thrown at me as opposed to there's going to be some litigation against you personally. No, I will not do that. So please, if you want to talk, fine. I have no problems with that. Send me all the emails you want, and I will talk.
Just to echo Tom's sentiments about how much we all care up here, and I take exception to the implication that we kind of made this decision kind of willy-nilly, fly by the night, seat of your pants kind of way. We've been discussing this and thinking about it and dealing with it since June, when we first talked about it and decided to have a committee put together to see how it would work. So it's been on my agenda for sure, and everybody else's, I'm sure. And so we've been thinking about it for a long time. The reason why we didn't push it off till January was because we felt that we had all the information, that we weren't going to get any new information. And although you may not agree with our decisions or our reasoning, we have all put in a lot of effort to decide what we wanted to do. everybody's not going to agree with this decision. It's a hard decision. It's an emotional decision, and I hear it in the voices of everybody that's coming up here, and it's a difficult time. But, and although I did vote against it the first night, there was reasons for it, but I did see a lot of the positives of going to the grade level school and agree with it. And I'm on board with the board because I believe in the system that we have here, that we voted for. You folks say you didn't get to vote, but you voted for us, and we're your representatives. And then when the decision comes up to vote on it, we abide by the decision of the board at the majority of the board. And that's just how I feel about it. And I understand it's emotional, but if everybody would work together and help your kids and talk to your kids about change, sometimes change is good for kids. Sometimes it's helpful for them. Some kids actually thrive on having change. So if you spend it in a positive way, it will make it easier for your children.
Yeah, I said what I needed to say.
I just wanted to first say thank you to the new speakers. You can tell there were several of you up here that were a little bit more nervous. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not easy to speak in public, and I know you were, as one individual spoke, there's a lot of emotions. People are scared, angry. There's a lot of passion in the room, and you all care about your children, as you very well should. So I understand that. I also believe that we have a very good school district, and I think going forward with grade level schools, we still have a very good school district. I believe that we have some of the best teachers you can find, and those teachers will pitch in and help. A lot of the budget cutting is coming on the backs of teachers and everybody else that is employed by us. But the ones that are there are very professional, very good, and do an excellent job every day. And they, between the administration, the teachers, and hopefully the parents, this will work. I think in one of the responses to somebody that I emailed, it wasn't, if I had my first choice, I would build a K-5 somewhere with enough room, and it would be Spackenkill Elementary School, and they'd all be together for 5 years.